Okay. So I did a tutorial about 2 years ago. It was this tutorial right here. A lot of people, for some reason, um, watched this thinking that it was a tutorial, when in fact, which I guess it has become, but it was just a video that I made to try and gauge my progress. And at the time, I was pretty happy with that. However, a lot of people thought that it was informative and they learned a lot from it. But I realized, like watching it back, that I had made a lot of mistakes, and well, not necessarily information. It's like disinformation. It's inefficient workflow, and I would like to update that. So here we go. For one, I didn't understand the taper object, which I'm gonna rectify here. So what you want to do is add a curve, add a Bezier curve. The key to the taper object is that it only works on the X and Y axis. The X determines what it affects, the Y affects how much. So it's important that you look at it from the top. So click Z, and you're looking at it so that you see X across, Y up using the gizmo here. And it's important we don't really mess with that too much, because it simply doesn't work if you don't. So go to edit mode with your curve. We can position this how we want. I recommend setting the bevel up just a little bit so we can see it better. And then kind of like pretend this is like the ground here, and we'll use this as like a guide. So we can grab this section, sort of rotate it. It'll kind of like hang down since we're going for a tail in this case. And this section will kind of like swoop like that. You don't really need many more vertices than this. You can have more if you want to do something crazy, like make like a funny long weird shaped like rat tail or something. Not a huge deal. You can do that if you want. If you want to do that, hit E. You can add another one. But from there we go to object mode. Set this back to 0 for the depth because we have to duplicate it. So duplicate that. Hit Shift D to duplicate. Go to the original, which is Bezier curve. Set the bevel up a little bit until it's like about there, and then select the taper object as this, which will cause that type of thing to happen, which is what we want. And we go to edit mode here, and we can sort of drag this along this axis. In this case, we wanted to sort of go out a bit so it's a little more tapered like that, and you can kind of just drag it around until you're happy with it. So you can increase the size by going up, decrease the size by going down. In this case, it'll be like that, and it creates this nice perfect little gradient taper, which is exactly what we want for a tail. I kind of want this to be like shrunken in a bit, so we want this to be about as closed off as we can get, like right there, nice and sharp. Okay, so from here we can either delete this, the other one, once we're done, or we can make a new collection, which I'm going to call backups before I do this. And then I'm going to take this, right click, convert to mesh, down at the bottom, keep original, you want to have checked on, and it creates this mesh. And then we can grab these two, put them in the backups collection, and then just turn that off, and that's there if we ever need it. And I'm going to rename this tail because this is our main mesh that we're going to work with, and should not be really messed with a whole lot from this point. If you wanted to make it lower poly, like in the creation process, you would go to that, and you would make sure the resolution is turned down. Just as an example, I'll show you here. So the wireframe here, if you wanted that to be a lower resolution, you would do that. If you want to make like something like fairly optimized, I would personally probably go with 2. But 4 where it starts is also fine. I don't really... Nobody's going to beat you up over what, like 288 polygons? Yeah, that's not a big deal. So let's go back, let's say here. And we're going to start positioning this where we want. So I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to grab this, rotate it. Sorry, not edit mode, into object mode, hit RX90, and that will rotate it along the x-axis. And if you're doing this for VR chat, you're probably going to be working with this being the front, the y-axis. Hit RZ90, and that will rotate it probably to the back of your character. And from here, we're basically in position, and you want to hit Control A, apply all transforms, and that will make this the starting point for the object. And we can go into Add, Armature, Single Bone, grab that armature in Edit mode, G to grab, rotate that around, and grab this, slap that down there at the end point of your tail. This makes it a little easier to work with. And turn on the wireframe so we can get this in a good position. Roughly right there. Hold shift for gradual movement. There we go. And we just grab the whole bone, right click, subdivide. 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly. I would say 6 bones is enough for a tail like this. That's fine. And then we're just going to grab these individual little points, move these just behind some whatever like loops are closest. In this case, I'd probably be like that. And this gives you a good little amount of those. So something like that should be fine. I think that's okay. There we go. And from here, the armature should be applied because I didn't do anything to it. The tail should also be applied. All we have to do is hit Control, click on the armature, second, tail first, armature second. Make sure you're control clicking that. And then hit Control P while hovering over the viewport with automatic weights. Under here, under armature deform with automatic weights. This literally does everything for you. Make sure they're in the same collection there, because they weren't for me. And then you're going to grab the armature here. Make sure that's the active object. It'll be like light orange. Go to pose mode, and then watch. It just works. Mess this up a little bit and do whatever should be nice. You'll get higher quality deformation. The more polygons you have, the more bones you have. Generally, I would say that doesn't matter because it looks very fluid in motion. When you're individually bending bones, it'll look a little jank. It also will look way better once it's textured. So what we're going to do now is, since that's rigged, took like 1 second, I'm going to be texturing this. So I'm going to grab the tail here. And with this workflow, because it's a tail, I'll show you an example. The way I unwrapped it last time in the original video was I grabbed this, and I grabbed this, and I marked a seam, and I hit U unwrap. And you get this, which is like, this makes sense in your brain. You're like, yeah, that looks like a tail that's been unwrapped. However, what that does is it makes this really weird shape near the end, and this like scrunches down into like quality level 0. This will be like 2 pixels of quality at the end. What we want is a consistent quality across the whole object. And because it's a tail, it will naturally sort of taper at the end, which means we shouldn't need to unwrap this at all. So what I mean by that is I'm going to add a mesh, add a plane, and we're going to do something very simple. We're going to go into here in edit mode, and we're going to be working with this plane for the most part. And I'm going to hit R and then scroll up once to create this sort of effect there. And this creates a nice little section here. There's that. And then we can work with this in texture paint mode. So I'm going to select this middle part, get a texture paint, make sure you have this selected, and this will be there. And then go to the shading tab. And under here where it says principled BSDF, this is your basic shader that everything plugs into. Basically like filters everything that you have and puts it into the material. We're going to base color, drag that out, add an image texture. We're going to create a new image. This does not have to be high quality, so I'm going to make it 1024. Just as a start. I would typically, if I'm going for something like a large project, I would do 4096 and like lower it if needed, but this is a good starting point because this is a very simple object. And we can go into texture paint mode here, and this gives us like a little guide. So I'm going to hide the tail here and the armature so we can see better. And basically, you're going to pretend like the tail is laying flat across here, and it's going to be repeating. So what we can do is go down to here, hit N, go down to the tool, go to your symmetry options, mirror X and Y, and find yourself a texture mask if you want. You could get like some scales. There's a lot of free ones on, there's the Z Brush website. Let me find that. The Z Brush library, which is on pixologic.com/ZBrush/download center/alpha. And you can get all these nice little patterns for various different things. I have a couple in here. I have it in my alpha section. So let me close out of this real quick. And we're going to go to alpha stencils. And I have sort of like skin. I'm going to do this sort of like randomize the dragon skin effect here. We're going to use that as our stencil. So you want to hold right click and you can use that as your stencil. I am actually going to turn off X mirroring, I believe. Yeah, it's causing some weird issues. We just kind of want to take this and do that. Then we have ourselves a nice little like dragony skin effect going on. Sort of yoink that. And then we can kind of select the rest of it. So go to edit mode, make sure all that is selected. And then we go back to texture paint mode. And then all that should be selected. And we can grab another one of our stencils here. In this case, I'll grab this scaly one here. Maybe actually this one. We'll do that one. And then rotate this along the side. And then we have ourselves a thing we can use a little better. I'm going to be using the view plane for this, I believe, because it creates that effect. I am actually going to do the mirror along the y-axis because we want this to be mirrored like that. And we have ourselves a nice little scaly bit there going on. You can kind of do this however you want. In this case, I'm going to do like that, I think. And sort of make these overlap in that way. A couple different methods you can do. Until you're happy. I want these to be spaced a little bit more, I think. What if I did this? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah, we want that. That gets a lot more detail. So we're going to do that. Do that. That. And then that. Then we have ourselves kind of like a fun little shape there. Maybe a little bit in the middle, a little smaller. If you wanted. That kind of works. Okay. And so from here, while this isn't necessarily infinitely repeating, doesn't need to be, really. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to go to UV editing, and I'm going to assign this texture, which we've just painted. This will be our mask for everything. Call this tail text. And I'm going to grab this and put this on the tail material. I'm going to call it that. And go to here. Go to edit mode. Make sure tail is selected. And then it should sort of create this effect. This is reversed of how we want it to be. But if we hold Z, go to material preview, we can hide our plane now. And then we can grab this UV, rotate it by 180 degrees, and then it should correctly work. And then I wanted this part to be along the bottom. So what we can do is go to edit mode, and then just sort of adjust that along this axis until it is correct. Because this will infinitely sort of like repeat along the top, we have this sort of shape here. And there we go. So it should be infinitely repeating along this axis, not necessarily along that one. We have enough density there. This should get this effect that we want. Okay, and then from here, let's see. This is mostly, like, you could ship it at this point, like, to some people, and they'd be happy, but I am going to do a little extra. So I'm going to take this in shading mode. Because this is a black and white texture, you always kind of want to start with that if you're doing this style. I'm going to go and put a color ramp in between these. And then we can sort of make this whatever color we want. So, like, the black will be, in this case, we'll do, like, a dark green. Something like that. And then the white will be like a yellowish, maybe like a dark yellowish color or something like that. Like so. And then we'll also drag this into another color ramp. And then we'll put this in color, we'll do bump, a bump map. Into height. It has to be height. And drag the normal to the normal. And then it should create this sort of effect that we want with the scales, like that. If you get these from ZBrush, these will be set up to use for bump maps, and they should just work pretty well. So I would do that. You could do different colors, like black looks good. You can even add colors in the middle. Like, I think I'm gonna add that yellowish color again, so like that on the end there, and then like crank this black in so that, like, the tips are a little black, maybe a little less. We can do like red. There we go. Something like that. Yeah, I think this is looking pretty happy with that. Let's drag that back so it's a little darker. There we go. That's a pretty good tail. All right. I like that. That looks pretty natural. And then a little stuff on the bottom, that looks good. All right. And then you can also take this and take it into here. You'll find that color ramps are one of the most common things that you'll use in this case. But it works really well for a lot of stuff. Like, you can use it for roughness. And if you haven't already, I forgot to mention this, go to edit mode, preferences, add-ons, type in node wrangler. You want the node wrangler added on here. And so we can drag this into the roughness and make sure that looks good. The tip kind of gets worn in this one. And that seems to be kind of good. So you want this to be like, the stuff that's like underneath would be shiny, I think. So we can kind of do that. I want this to be still shiny, so we need it to be like up a bit, and I need this one to be down a bit. So it's not quite as like sparkly. It looks like wet almost. It's like that, maybe. There's very little difference between these two, just a little bit. I think like that would be good. Yeah. There we go. Okay. So there's that. You can also do like a metallic if you would like. Maybe dragons could probably have a little more metallic. So I can drag Control D sorry, Shift D and put another color ramp in here. And you can kind of mess around with that to your liking if you would like. Or you could just completely remove that and just crank up the metallic to a point you're happy. I would probably do a little bit. Maybe like 0.5. This is something I would do in Unity, though. I would not mess with metallic in Blender for baking, because if you have any level of metallic, your bake will come out black. So I'm going to remove that for now, but I just wanted to look and see what it looked like. You can kind of like mess with that level once you get it into Unity. But yeah, dragging that back down to 0, we have the base tail here. So next part would be to bake all of these. We need to put in an image texture. Create new. This will be tail diffuse. The thing that I want to stress on this is we're not actually baking this on the tail. I was just using that to view it. It's using the same material. We are baking this on the plane, which we already have, because this will perfectly reference this. And you can kind of like look at this on the flat plane and see like, oh, this is, I see how this works now. Oh yeah. So hit Shift D and name this, create a new user for this. So that, call this tail roughness. Make sure that's set as non-color. Hit Shift D again. Make this a new one. Change that to tail normal. There's a couple different, so also there's a couple different workflows you can do for generating normals. This is kind of like the speedy, cheaty way. Like you go on the stencil library and like you get stuff that's already been made by professionals, and it just sort of works with the bump map. You could also make one of these yourself via sculpting. I'm not going to cover that in this video because it's outside the scope of it, but I just wanted to let you know that is an option. So yeah, this should be all we need for like most things. We got the diffuse, roughness, normal. If you wanted it to like get fancy, you could make an emission map from this. Like you could like crank up the color ramp on it or something, and like make like just the tips light up or something like that. Like if you want to do that. But for the most part, this should be enough. So we want to make sure that BSDF is connected to that, and then we should be good. So, and if you didn't notice, we didn't actually have to unwrap this at all, because this is the default shape when you add like a curve. It just sort of appears in like a cube, or not cubes, in a grid of squares like this, perfectly covering the UV. You don't have to do any work at all UV unwrapping. This just kind of works. Now the only thing I had to do was I had to shift it down so that it matched the UV, as you can see here. But yeah, so let's make sure we bake this. So let's go to plane, go to shading, make sure we're in cycles here. Set your max samples to 1. Grab that tail diffuse, make sure the plane is selected. Make sure anything you don't want to be included as part of the bake is turned off for rendering. So like your backups folder, your armature, shouldn't really matter, but the tail for sure. Make sure this is enabled for rendering, which is this little DSLR camera there. Or SLR camera, I don't know. And go on to bake. We want to set this to diffuse because we're baking the diffuse currently. Turn off direct and indirect. This will get just the color. And then we hit bake, and it yoinks it. Think of it like when you're baking these, it's like taking everything that we have and like shoving it through here, and then like outputting this. So here we have our diffuse. So let me save this in here. Blender projects. I'm gonna create one called like tail tutorial. There we go. We're gonna call it tail diffuse.png. If you want, you can make another folder for textures. If it's like a complex project. This one's small, so I'm just gonna leave it in the base folder. And then roughness next. You just select roughness here. And it should just grab that. Same process. Looks like that. Save it in here. Tail roughness. Same with the normal. Take that. We got our normal here. And then from here, okay, so I do want to cover actually. I'm gonna make one more. I'm gonna show you how to bake metallic because it is weird in Blender. So we'll do tail metal. So you can bake metallic in Blender, but it's a weird method because if you bake anything with metallic on it, it'll turn black. So what you want to do is like grab one of these. Say we'll grab this. And also to like slap that over here, drag our texture, the original one that we're using to sort of drive all these. Drop that in the metallic just so we can sort of see it. And then just hit Control-Shift-Click to preview that with Node Wrangler turned on. And I'm going to do like, we'll do like that or something. Just a little bit. And then maybe flip these. Or probably drag this up a bit so it's more metallic. Let's see. Sort of mess with these until we get something we're happy with, and then I'll show you. About like that. Okay. That works. That'll be okay. And then to get this as an output, you actually want to put it into the emission. You can also do the base color. I like to put it into the emit because it's not really being used. And it can work that way as well. We can go to emit. And we'll bake the emit, which this will be, in this case, the metallic. We're telling Blender that this is emit, but it actually is metallic. Oh, I need to put that into the strength of emit. Sorry, not the color. Bake emit. There we go. And then we get this. And we can save as tail. Call it tail metal or something. Tail metal.png. All right, and then from here, I'm gonna rename this material to tail baker or something to indicate that it's used for texture creation, not the actual one that we're going to be using. And then I'll create a new one based on that. That'll make a copy that's exactly the same. I'm gonna rename that to tail, just tail. And then we're gonna take all this on that one, just delete it, replace it with what we created, and we're gonna take the. I'm actually gonna do this. So the plane will have tail baker on it. Turn that off, and the tail will have tail for it. So diffuse, we're gonna drag the color to the base color, the roughness to the roughness, the metal to the metal. Let's organize this a little better. And then, oh, I actually deleted the normal. I'd renamed it without creating a new one. So what I'm gonna do, fix that, go down to normal. And because I saved it, I still have it. And it is important, I will stress, please save your textures when you create them, because Blender will sometimes, I still quite haven't figured out why, it will just make them black, and just, you can't use them for whatever reason if you don't save them somewhere, or pack them. So yeah, back to where we were, I'm gonna go to normal, put this into a, normal map, hit F3, add a normal map, and drag color to color, normal to normal. And this will then give us this effect. And all of this is on one material. Then we can go back to our layout, check that out, go back to our armature, make sure this works. Go to pose mode, grab these. There we go. Do that with material on. And you have yourself a nice little tail. Boom. And there we go. I think that's about it. So hopefully that helps. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.